hand it to her. She knows that we don't have a memory.
Yes,
the country doesn't have a memory. We have a fatally short memory, and we're kind of tolerant of however people want to reintroduce themselves in the moment.
Yes.
So she understands America.
I didn't know.
Better than I do, or maybe you do, because she gets it. We love the huckster. We root for the huckster.
Yes.
We root for kind of the criminal sometimes. And she's kind of assuming that role of going, this is who I am today.
Right. Yeah, I found my wave. I'm going to ride it.
I found my wave.
Hi, everyone. So that was an interview of Meghan Kelly with Tim Dillon discussing Meghan Markle. And I found it interesting how he pointed out how we have a very short memory, and that Harry and Meghan have manipulated that and used that and reinvented or attempting to reinvent themselves. But especially people that aren't really paying close attention, they have, successfully pulled over quite a few things because they're con artists. Or some say as psychological operations. And I watched this video and I found it fascinating because Harry and Meghan, I think, are a part of as many have said, the military-industrial complex, which has been created, of course, as we know, the past 5 years, starting in 2020, this scenario of Operation Warp Speed. And I just want to play this video clip. She does an excellent job of breaking down the symbology, because basically with the symbol of Operation Warp Speed, as you see here, and you can also see it on Wikipedia, the same symbol there, Operation Warp Speed, a public-private partnership initiated by the U.S. government. So a public-private partnership. Isn't that fascism? Isn't that the World Economic Forum? Isn't that the New World Order? And also the official seal. So that is the official seal there, what she's showing. And she breaks it down, and it's like eyes wide shut. It's right in front of our faces. And it's just a matter of going back and looking at it and really taking apart these symbols and what they really mean. And she does that very concisely. And I just wanted to go over it again because I think it is so important. The con was there from the beginning, in my opinion, and they showed it with all the symbologies right in front of our faces, and our eyes were wide shut. So here we go. I'm going to play this clip. This is on YouTube, by the way.
Look at some more evidence. Operation Warp Speed. So Operation Warp Speed was initiated to facilitate and accelerate the development of the C19 shots, therapeutics and diagnostics. We are going to take a look at this logo. On the Warp Speed logo, right behind the spike protein, we have the anticorona. This symbol is used in New Age, Buddhism, Hinduism, and so forth, and is known as an image for the mind. It is
Okay, I'm going to have to break this up a little bit because I am using her video here, and it is more than a few seconds, so I've got to break it up in parts and stop it. And what I'm going to do here is every time she covers an aspect of this, I'm going to show you the backup material, or some of it anyways. So she starts off with the fact that we have, looking at the symbols on the seal, you've got the coronavirus inside of a cube. And some would call that the cube of Saturn, which is similar to the black cube with Satanism, and also with what the Muslims circle around when they pray, and is also one apparent in the United Nations building. It's supposed to be very satanic symbolism. From what I've heard, I think other people have said that. But there's a symbol, the lines on this cube are called if you look in the lower left part, anticorona. Now, if you look up anticorona there, you'll see the same definition over and over pops up. It's a concept in Hindu philosophy referring to the totality of the mind, including the thinking faculty. Anta means inner and Karana means instrument. So the totality of the mind. All right, so this represents the mind. This cube, let me go back to the picture there. Anticorona, that cube there. Here's some That's a corona symbols right here. You see, it's sort of like a Nazi symbol in a cube form. And isn't it interesting that during this pandemic, many things were done that happened during Nazi times, right? It was, in my opinion, allegedly an attack through the medical system, killing off the old people, killing off people that were useless eaters. I mean, this all happened under Nazism. So that's one thing. Also, the fact that the cube represents the mind and the picture, there's many different, there's another, you can see many different ways this is shown. Picture in Operation Warp Speed has the coronavirus inside the cube or the mind. So it looks to me that the symbol is saying it's all in people's minds. So this could refer to the fact that this whole thing was in everyone's minds, like psychological operation. But maybe this thing that we call it the coronavirus well, it didn't really exist. There was never really anything spreading around. It was just, coronavirus is cold, causes the common cold. Allegedly, you can debate that. But the point is, this symbol, just looking at the symbol, it's putting the coronavirus inside of the mind. And why would you use that for a symbol? Unless that's what I see this symbol as, that it could have been something all in people's heads, all in people's minds, psychological manipulation. And even the name, we'll get more into it, but here and play a little more of her video.
Is also known as a connection and a gateway to God. Now, Revelation 19:20 says, "The beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone." Now, we were warned that the mark of the beast would be a deception, and that the entire world would be deceived by pharmakeia. This would be the shots accelerated by Operation Warp Speed. Many Christians were deceived into taking the mark and were unknowingly worshipping the false saviour that this idol represents. Everybody sat there and signed their name on consent forms without any understanding of what they were participating in.
So you could look at that describing the war on the minds and how deception going on. Of course, you probably heard of the pharmakeia and how it was predicted in the Bible that the world would be deceived by pharmakeia. I also want to point out the name of this operation is Operation Warp Speed, right? So when I say operation at the top, the definition of operation is looking at the definitions of these words. Right, a fact of operating or being active. This is from Cambridge Dictionary. The way or parts of machine or system working together, the process of making parts of a machine or system work together. And another definition of operation is an occasion when a doctor cuts a body for medical purposes or medical reasons in order to repair, remove, or replace an unhealthy, damaged part. So operation, you can refer to like a surgical operation. It's also a mathematical process it could describe, which one set of numbers produced from another. A medical process where doctors cut open a body to repair, remove. CRISPR technology, anyone? An act of operation is also an act or work process of working, doing something, being in action. An activity planned to achieve something. An activity planned to achieve something. Mm-hmm. So I found it interesting that the first word of this is operation. It could also be short for psyop, right? A psychological operation, since we do have the cube of the mind in there. And of course, there are many websites covering psychological operations, psychological warfare, following the use of propaganda and other psychological operations to influence opinions, emotions, and attitudes and behavior. And the RAND, we know, is very involved with all this. The military was involved with this whole thing. It was a DoD military operation with these countermeasures. So, psychological warfare, planned use of propaganda, and other psychological operations. So we've got Operation Warp Speed. And warp speed, if you look into what's the exact definition of warp speed? And if you look up warp speed, again, back to Cambridge, you got the definition. First, they put warp, which means to become damaged by bending or twisting, to make a person or their behavior strange in an unpleasant or harmful way. So that's the definition of warp, to make people behave strangely in unpleasant, harmful ways. I think that's very descriptive of what occurred or began to occur in 2020. And in science fiction books, so now we're getting to warp speed here. In science fiction, lies, right, make believe, to move at a speed that is much faster than is usually possible using special technology or special mental powers. Right? So, warp, referring to speed, is an imaginary science fiction lie of a speed to be traveled that can take you to a different section of a video game, like the next definition describes. Moving at a science fiction speed that only happens in cartoons with space travel or whatnot. The act of moving at a speed much faster than usually possible using special technology. In other words, warp speed is fiction. It doesn't exist. It's something that is talked about. And you can look it up, do a search. Physicists are talking about, well, one day we may be able to do it. But in reality, warp speed is an imaginary speed. It's science fiction. It's a lie. It doesn't really exist. And it's not an actual speed of anything that can travel. There's no traveling at that. So that's why I'm like, why would they use a fictional idea of a speed that doesn't exist in reality, excuse me, to describe this operation? Now, you could argue as many, like, for example, the fact that they came out with billions of, injections to give it to everybody on the planet. Many people pointed out at the time, it's impossible that they could have made these this fast. Like, even if they worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it is not possible that they could have come up with that many by 2021. So the only way it could have happened is they had begun making it years before. And so there's that kind of imaginary warp speed, like, oh, boop, there they are. They traveled through time. Or, they use some magical technology. Now, you could also argue the magic referring to satanic witchcraft or whatnot, which has also been suggested by multiple people. So, but however you want to look at it, there's this operation or possible psychological operation that used this fictional speed to make you believe that everything happened just like that. They snapped their fingers and there were all the syringes just ready to go, as one example. So it's looking like the whole thing is just an act of fiction or lies, psychological operation to get people to change their behavior and psychology and to warp them as well and their behavior in very strange ways, unhealthy ways.
Like we went over before, the abomination of desolation would happen before Jesus' return. So much of the church today don't believe that they can be deceived, but we were warned so many times that we would be, and to watch. The thing we need to keep in mind is that Revelation 12 tells us that Satan would come to make war against those who keep the commandments of God and those who have the testimony of Jesus Christ. That is the church. The biggest deception of all is believing you cannot be deceived. So let's look at this logo, because logos show you what a company is all about. The spike protein is sitting inside the anticorana, right inside the mind. The Greek word for forehead, as in mark in the forehead, is the word metapon, and it actually means behind the forehead, as in the mind. The root word of metapon is meta. Facebook changed its name to Meta right in the height of the pandemic. Facebook were one of the biggest mind control mechanisms for this whole Antichrist narrative. They promoted the narrative that they wanted people to see, and they just blocked and deleted the rest. Remember all the fake book fact checkers? Now, the word anticorana is made up of two words, anta, which means inner, and corana, which means instrument or function. The instrument sent out by Operation Warp Speed was designed to have one function: to get inside the minds and deceive the people, to turn out the light of the candle, which is the Spirit of God. Now, going back to the logo, do you see the right of the anticorana? These are the Hebrew letter Vav. Remember that all Hebrew letters are assigned a number. Vav is the number 6. There are 3 of them. Vav, 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 666.
Yeah, so it brings in meta as well into this, and that is very striking that Facebook suddenly became Meta, just like Twitter suddenly has become X. These changes of names of these platforms that we know are the ones used to push these psychological operations. So she goes through all this very quickly. So I just want to point out that she says the Greek word for forehead is metapon, which you can see here in Strong's right here. Metapon refers to the forehead, used in the New Testament, such as Revelation, where the mark of the forehead signify allegiance. So meta, so that's where she's saying meta is associated with this idea, mark on forehead, and meta, the idea of living in the metaverse and or having the AI and being attached to it, I mean, with the nanotech. And remember how the censorship is a huge part of any psychological operation to influence people. And the censorship was so heavy-handed, as I know firsthand so well. And I also found what stuck out to me as well were the Jewish letters here. Fav, 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 I think she said they are. With every letter in Hebrew, I guess the Jewish language is 666, which is also in the barcodes, right? You know, you've heard that too before. And also in Bill Gates's patent has 666 in it. So they put it right out there. You know? Why is that on this symbol for Operation Warp Speed? Why would they have that, right? And yeah, I'll keep going here.
Testimony of Jesus Christ. That is the church. The biggest deception of all is believing you cannot be deceived. So let's look at this logo, because logos show you what a company is all about. The spike protein is sitting inside the anticorana, right inside the mind. The Greek word for forehead, as in mark in the forehead, is the word metapon, and it actually means behind the forehead, as in the mind. The root word of metapon is meta. Facebook changed its name to Meta right in the height of the pandemic. Facebook were one of the biggest mind control mechanisms for this whole Antichrist narrative. They promoted the narrative that they wanted people to see, and they just blocked and deleted the rest. Remember all the fake book fact checkers? Now, the word anticorana is made up of two words, anta, which means inner, and corana, which means instrument or function. The instrument sent out by Operation Warp Speed was designed to have one function: to get inside the minds and deceive the people, to turn out the light of the candle, which is the Spirit of God. Now, going back to the logo, do you see the 3 almost hooks coming out of the top right of the Antiqurana? These are the Hebrew letter Vav. Remember that all Hebrew letters are assigned a number. Vav is the number 6. There are 3 of them. Vav, 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 666. Below this 666 symbolism, we have the Hebrew letter Yod. Not only do Hebrew words have numbers attached to them, they have pictures too. The picture for the letter Yod is an arm and a hand. 666 forehead, 666 hand.
Now, if you look up the Yud, she's saying she's pointing to in the lower right here. Then that is a written differently now. There's a more modern version of it. It's kind of like calligraphy, I guess. It changes a little bit over the years. This could be seen as a more older way that it was written, whereas the modern way is depicted more like this, like a curved with a thinner end. So Yud, like she says, one of the meanings is the hand. So if you've got Meta for the forehand and Yud for the hand, that's where the mark of the beast. But also I find it interesting that there are Jewish Hebrew letters in this. And as we see now, what's going on with the anti-Semitism laws, etc. And all we know that all this is involved in this and symbolized and right in front of your face, in front of our faces, right? Why would they be putting this symbolism in there, in these letters? It does look very strange, right? It's why, you can't, there's no other reason that wouldn't symbolize anything that would be recognizable to Americans, for this to have 3 hockey sticks sticking out of it is the only way I would otherwise would have viewed that type of depiction. But this makes a lot more sense, especially knowing what we know now. It all makes a lot more sense.
Let me also point out that the 666 hand is on the right-hand side of the logo. This is Satan's war on the seed of the woman, the church. If you take out the 2 P's in warp speed, you get war seed. PP in music stands for pianissimo, and it means very quiet, as in silent weapons of war. Revelation 12:17, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
So, she's using it figuratively, the seed of the woman, war on the seed, meaning the church. But I think you could also look at it as literally a war on the woman's seed, woman's fertility. I mean, you only need to look at Naomi Wolf and the gynecologist, Dr. Thorpe. Yeah, Dr. Thorpe. And also the shedding we hear about where women who are having all weird symptoms, very strange, never seen before experiences with their menstrual cycles, women who are hosts, also babies, even young female babies who spent time with vaccinated grandparents suddenly start bleeding and things like that, like really unusual. And it was all suppressed, censored in the beginning as well. So, you could look at that in multiple ways, the war on the seed, if you want to look at that depiction as well. So I think I'm going to end it right there, and I will put a link below to her video. You can watch the whole thing, and I find it fascinating. I find symbols fascinating, and I find it Oh, there's one more thing though. Before I go, is the stars, the pentagrams, which are also part of tarot. You see that, but you can look at that. This page goes into 14 spiritual meanings of the five-pointed star, and it means one thing alone. It means multiple things, and being in a circle is also symbolic. Something to note with this, whole symbology going on here. So, just to name a few of the meanings. Oh, it's a pentagon. Now we can say that the DoD or the Pentagon was behind this whole operation. So that could be one point symbol of this, meaning of it here. And when it's in a circle, it's an inscribed pentagram associated with various spiritual and religious traditions, including Wicca and paganism. It says the circle around the star is seen as a symbol of unity and interconnectedness of all things. Interconnectedness of all things. And isn't the alleged mission or what they want to accomplish with this operation is to connect everyone together in an internet of bodies or internet of things? And it actually says here the definition, interconnectedness of all things, IoT, interconnected in the cloud here. So that's another way you could look at it. It also represents the 5 basic elements: air, water, earth, fire, and spirit. Union, it also symbolizes union of both the spiritual and material realms, as this was spiritual and material in nature. Yeah, so it goes on. There are more ways of interpreting the pentagram. And of course, it's used, in many places. But she points out that there are 13 of them on this. If you count all the 5-pointed stars, there are 13. And she says that 13 represents rebellion and lawlessness in the Bible. So there, I'm going to end it there. And if you want to watch more, I found it fascinating. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this and learned something. Thank you for watching.